the hottest topic, which is vaginal estrogen and is it safe?
So the nitty gritty is that all the study that we have does point towards safety of use of vaginal estrogen, those who have had breast cancer or even currently have breast cancer.
This next question, did being on HRT low dose cause my DCIS?
There is never one thing that you did, one thing that you didn't do that caused your cancer. We have to remove the guilt and the shame.
Next up is recommendations for joint pain for someone who's taken an AI. So I went through this. It's about our hair. And sometimes we're like, we should be grateful to be alive and my hair won't stop shedding. And listen, I'm one of those women. It's not fun. So one is about digestion. And now I hear this a lot. My digestion is so sensitive post menopause. Any tips for that? Microdosing GLP-1s is one of my favorite topics, actually. I started taking it and is it safe for me to take hormone therapy after breast cancer? If estrogen fuels breast cancer, then why do some doctors still say HRT is safe? Is it selfish or shallow of me to just want to feel like myself again, to be symptom-free? Or should I just be grateful to be alive? Why do some doctors, oncologists, and gynecologists all give you different opinions? What is my actual risk of recurrence if I take estrogen? And how do I decide if that's a right risk for me when it comes to quality of life?
Estrogen causes cancer. Estrogen is bad. It's just categorically, it's wrong. And to say that to somebody is ignorant. And if you're a physician saying that, then it's just wrong.
And with breast cancer, one group got tamoxifen and another group got estrogen, and they both showed a similar regression in breast cancer.
Whole purpose of treating and beating breast cancer is to have a normal life. And in order to have a normal life, you have to alleviate your symptoms of estrogen deficiency and prevent the diseases of estrogen deficiency.
That giving hormones to women with a history of breast cancer is malpractice.
So you are choosing quality of life over longevity. You would rather live a shorter life because you're on hormones and you have breast cancer.
Yeah, no.
Even if I knew that I would get breast cancer again and I would die several years earlier, I would have continued on my hormone replacement because quality of life is so important.
If you have somebody who has a higher grade, higher stage breast cancer that's estrogen receptor positive, there's benefit to doing the hormone blocker.
Now we have a study, which is the gold standard randomized controlled trial, showing that's completely wrong. Estrogen is preventive of breast cancer.
If you're confused and you just want answers, at least enough information to make a sound decision or have informed conversations with your doctor, you're in luck. I am your breast cancer bestie. My name is Jen Delvaux, and today I welcome Dr. Paige to the show. Together, we're going to answer all of those questions and so much more. All right, off to the show. This is a quick reminder before we get started on this amazing conversation with Dr. Paige. This is not medical advice. We are all unique individuals. There's a lot of questions that you guys asked. I posted a question sticker on Instagram. I said, let's come up with some hot topics, hot questions for Dr. Paige. And you guys came up with so many incredible questions, but a few of them are really unique to or very individualized. So if I don't get to your question today, just remember it might be that you have to go to your doctor and ask the specific questions and maybe get some tests run, but you're going to get a lot out of this episode. So I'm so excited to have Dr. Paige back in the house. She is incredible. She is my go-to doctor to have on here to answer all the things. She's my doctor and I just love her. So I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's dive right into the hottest topic, which is vaginal estrogen and is it safe after breast cancer, even if you have an ERP or positive breast cancer?
Yeah, let's just dive in right off the bat with the vaginal estrogen. We're going to get close right away. So it is a hot topic. It's a hot topic because there's a lot of misinformation around it and there's a lot of suffering around it, quite frankly. So the nitty gritty is that all the study that we have does point towards safety of use of vaginal estrogen, those who have had breast cancer or even currently have breast cancer. And I think there's just so much fear around making decisions in medicine that we have to take a deep breath and really look at making these decisions with weighing the pros and cons, and always, always, always with a patient-centered approach. And so as a patient, when you go to your physician or other clinician, you really want to go informed by this conversation, other research that you can do, and really knowing your health philosophies and knowing what you're trying to achieve. And I think even though, our wonderful oncologists, they guide us in the right direction and they have our best interests in mind, they are very narrowly focused when it comes to cancer on, killing cancer at all costs, right? And sometimes that, I think, induces more fear than it needs to. And the reality is we have to weigh the pros and cons of all of our health. And every patient deserves to weigh quality of life. And really, especially in females, historically, we have underrepresented our own comfort, our own desire to have healthy sexual relationships. But so when it comes to vaginal estrogen, the main use of it is genitourinary syndrome of menopause. The vaginal tissue becomes dry, and it's not just a comfort issue. It is literally a breakdown of your tissues that not only causes you to be uncomfortable, lack lubrication, lack sensitivity, sexual response, but more importantly, perhaps, at least, on the books, sexual health is very important, but is an increased risk of urinary tract infection. And so we really should be taking that seriously as we age, because it kills women. UTI is not the same as we age as it is when, we're a teenager. And so all in all, vaginal estrogen, especially when used according to the package directions, it does not show a significant systemic absorption and absorbs to the local vaginal tissues, which is there to support the bladder and decrease risk of UTIs.
In a nutshell, it's as safe as can be. And you will see if you're following any of the top menopause doctors on Instagram, one of them even went through breast cancer. Like, they talk about this being safe, and it's changed my life. I understand if you have fear behind it, because so did I. I was fearful of it for the first year, but I knew my symptoms were getting worse and worse. And that's the thing. It doesn't just get bad and then it stops. It gets worse and worse and worse. You've got vaginal atrophy, you've got the dryness, no sex drive, and then the UTIs and the bladder infections and the bathroom issues. And the interesting part is what we're learning more about the UTIs and how it affects women affects us at an older age. And I heard that there's not even the symptoms. Like, when we were younger, if we had a UTI, it was painful. What is that?
Yeah. So in the medical world, we always think of the pediatric population and an elderly population as being just difficult, because the body, for different reasons, does not send clear signals all the time. And so oftentimes in elderly women, their first sign of a UTI may just be fever, may just be a change in mental status. They're forgetful or seeing things, just really septic type symptoms, fevers, chills. And that's why, unfortunately, elderly women sometimes end up in the ICU with no symptoms. And I don't say that to scare anyone, but we just don't want to downplay a urinary tract infection, which can very quickly spread from bladder to kidneys to the bloodstream. We don't want to have too much comfort with that, because in our younger years, we thought, yeah, we get symptoms, we get treated, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a different scenario as we age.
Yeah, you think drink a little cranberry juice, you might be able to get rid of it on your own.
Yeah.
And it is wild to think that it affects the mental status. Is that so when it hits the blood? Is that when it hits the mental status?
So
wild.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on from there. So this next question, someone asked, did being on HRT low dose cause my DCIS? No family history, ERP or positive breast cancer. And now I think about this, and I want to just share my story with it too. So I was on synthetic progesterone, the synthetic one,
Progesterone.
and testosterone, like the year and a half prior to my diagnosis. So I know you and I have talked about testosterone a few times, and I'm still nervous. It was the pellet though, which was a large dose of testosterone. So anyway, I now know with my knowledge that I don't believe HRT causes this, but there's a whole slew of things. But why don't we have you answer this?
Yeah. And this question just brings up so much, like grace, just empathy and grace, first of all, because I think that is the normal, natural thought anytime you're faced with a cancer diagnosis is what did this? And all of our health and cancer as a huge, a prime example is a recipe of things, right? Like there is never one thing that you did, one thing that you thought, one thing that you didn't do that caused your cancer. And so we have to remove the guilt and the shame and the questioning and the fear, as difficult as it is. And so when we look at what a cancer is, we kind of rewind a little bit. Cancer is a cell that really has lost its natural signaling mechanisms and is dividing quickly. All of our cells are dynamic, right? Our cells are being replicated and are being born and replaced. It's a constant ongoing process of renewal that the body goes through. But for a lot of reasons, there's this tug of war between how much stress goes into a cell and how much stress a cell is able to relieve. And I use that term stress, pretty broadly because of course, when we think of stress, we think of emotional stress. The stress of the cell is its environment and its exposures. And so, yes, it's true that breast cancer cells are exposed to estrogen. When you say HRT, typically people can mean estrogen. That could be a bioidentical form or a synthetic form. Progesterone, which can be bioidentical or synthetic, which are, different things. Testosterone. So when we say HRT, just a little, warning that like, even that is like very nuanced, right? We have to get specific about what we're talking about. So breast cells are exposed to hormones, obviously. That's what they're meant for, right? That is the beauty of breast cells is they are hormonally active. And so we would be kind of like short-sighted to think like hormones are so dangerous for our cells because they are naturally made to be hormonally active. However, if for other reasons that cell becomes ill, could be that it's, based on genetic factors that then meet a slew of lifestyle factors, whether toxin exposure, pesticide exposure, alcohol exposure. There's just so many things that our cells can be exposed to. And so when we talk about that tug of war, like how much is our body being exposed to? And then how well does our body detoxify? And I know I don't technically even love that word, like to talk about detoxification, but that's the process. I think, and I say I don't love to talk about it just because like, I don't want to play into like, oh, the detox fad, but the body has a detoxification system that is meant to clear toxins. And so if that tug of war if we're not winning that tug of war of getting rid of those toxins and we have a genetic susceptibility to that makes our cell development a little bit at risk, you can see how that's, a recipe. So based on the data, we know that bioidentical hormone replacement therapy does not increase risk of DCIS or other forms of breast cancer. The caveat to that is there have been some small studies, the WHI one of them, it has been replicated, that points to progestins, like you mentioned earlier. A progestin is a synthetic form of progesterone that very slightly increases risk of breast cancer. And when we say very slightly, we're talking about when you hear recently, and because it's on my mind, there was a study released that said, this hormone replacement therapy increases risk of breast cancer by 10%. Now, that makes us think, I've gone from a 0% chance to a 10% chance of getting breast cancer, like 1 in 10 chance. No, that's not what it means. Increases your risk by 10%. So going from like, a 0.4 with increased 0.4 by 10%, you're like, very, very small chances, right? And, you know, when we put that in the big picture, it's like much less of a chance than a sedentary lifestyle, alcohol, you know, processed foods, and all these other things that we're exposed to. I first of all want to give like a lot of empathy to this person to say, let's help you like move past the coulda, woulda, shoulda phase, because everybody goes through that phase, but also have confidence that there's nothing that you did to cause your breast cancer.
Yeah, I love that you see. This is why I love Dr. Paige. She's always like during all of our conversations, because I went through this too. And she always calms you and goes through this whole, and I'm like, oh, okay, okay, good. Because it is the perfect storm. It's the perfect storm of a lot of different things. It's never just one thing. But I do, you know, being on that synthetic progesterone and the pellet test, like those I definitely would, because bioavailable is way better than the synthetic, correct?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So that if you were making the decision to do this, that is definitely what you want to talk to your doctor about. And I don't recommend pellets, because pellets, they cannot monitor how much you're getting. And once you get that big pellet of testosterone, it's there.
Yeah, pellets are tough. It's, you know, pellet like popularity, I think, was born of a medical system that really dismissed women's desire to explore hormone therapy with informed decisions. And so, you know, alternative treatments like pellets came into favor. They're not FDA approved, albeit, you know, we use some medicines that aren't FDA approved for certain uses. That doesn't necessarily totally disqualify them, but they just are really unpredictable. They seem very convenient at first. I mean, it's like, hey, if I could do something once every 3 months and not have to think about it, sign me up, right? Until you realize that, oh, but if it's not going well, it's not going well for 3 months. Plus all the time it takes to then undo that not going well.
Yeah, that perfect storm. And you know, Dr. Paige and I have done testing on my body specifically. We've done the Dutch test and blood work, and we now know, looking at my body, that I don't detox very well, and estrogen goes down the wrong pathway, and I need to be a little bit more cautious. With that being said, I am on vaginal estrogen. Still always am thinking about HRT in the back of my head, but I'm not there yet. Maybe one day, because, you know, I think we all live in this world of PTSD because of our oncologist. And like she said, your oncologist, they're there. They are amazing doctors because they want to keep cancer out of our lives forever. But they don't know some of the other things. Like they'll tell me, oh, my oncologist told me I shouldn't do soy or I shouldn't eat flax seeds. And I'm like, what? I'm like, but you have to think this doctor went to school for years on chemotherapy drugs and on patients to, like, for them to survive. They did not go through nutrition school. So I think you need to talk to a specific person. If you want to talk about HRT after breast cancer, talk with somebody like Dr. Paige that's very well versed, that does extra testing, or another functional doctor that's really going to look at your whole body, your unique self, and then make decisions based on those tests.
Yeah, being trained in primary care, one of the core principles of primary care is one, how the whole body fits together and kind of weighing that, but also the importance of humility and knowing what you don't know. And I'm not sure that philosophically our specialist colleagues are trained in the same way. And it's hard to admit, like, oh, that's not my area, or you know, I'm not familiar with the data on that. And so sometimes they're giving a very like narrow, they have a very narrow lens, right? A narrow scope. And they're creeping outside of their scope with a level of authority that they really aren't aware of what they don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I mean, we have so many, but we're going to get to what
We'll do our best.
What we can get to, and then we will come back and we'll have her on for episode 2. So one is about digestion. And now I hear this a lot. This person was my digestion is so sensitive post menopause. Any tips for that? But I also hear this a lot post diagnosis, like, you know.
Because, you know, when you think about it, for a lot of women, that's one and the same, right? You know, post diagnosis, all of a sudden you're in a menopausal state. hormonally, whether
Exactly.
surgically or medication wise. And I think this is one area that as you go along, you hear patients report these things and, it's kind of unclear, like, gosh, there's just so much that we're tempted culturally to write off as due to aging, right? Like, oh, this just happens with age. And I think, thankfully we have more data related to hormones effect on every system of the body. And there are definitely hormonal influences on the gut and vice versa. The gut is a two-way street. It is sending information to our brain and our brain is sending information down. And so there is a level of sensitivity that comes along. Our gut motility is affected, gut absorption is affected, our gut microbiome is affected, bile production, like the production of digestive enzymes, are all affected by hormonal influences. And so in a lot of ways, there are a lot of things that we can do. I think for those where hormone therapy is an option, of course, know the pros and cons of that. Then when it comes to how do we work around what seems to be a sensitive gut digestion situation, bad news or, sad news is I do think how it comes across is that we don't get away with what we used to get away with, right?
Totally. Oh my God.
So, I don't say that to play into we don't have to be perfect. We can't live in a bubble, we can't stress about these things, but really looking at the food that we're eating and recognizing that, look, this is literally a foreign object that I'm inserting inside my body. I better know what's in it. And whole, fresh, natural foods are where it's at. Finding quick and easy and doable ways to get those whole foods, anti-inflammatory diet, which usually means in addition to whole foods, just the more brightly colored, the better. I do think there are some other little tricks that can help. Taking digestive enzymes can help. Using probiotics can help, as well as intentionally getting more probiotic-rich foods, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, kombucha.
I eat sauerkraut literally every day. I love kraut.
Yes.
I even have a little spoonful of, I think it's called coconut cult.
Mm.
It's there's a chocolate strawberry and I just take a spoonful of that after I eat or something, just to get some sort of probiotic food wise. I really try to get people ask me all the time, do you take a supplement? I really try to get most things from food.
I think
when it comes to that.
Yeah, this is one area that I completely agree. It's a shame that culturally, a lot of times we didn't grow up with a lot of those probiotic rich foods like other cultures did. But whenever you can get probiotics from your food, you are guaranteed to know that you are getting live cultures if you're getting high quality product. And you're getting the number and variety. Even the most well-rounded probiotic supplement is not well-rounded. It's going to put in as many strains as it can maybe, but it's not as well-rounded as our natural probiotics. For a temporary time, also some people find that they're sensitive to certain foods or sensitive in particular to very fibrous foods or heavy red meats. And so just, easing off of those a little bit, cooking your vegetables a little bit more can temporarily kind of get you back to where you need to be. Chewing your food. I know it always sounds silly when I say that, but in our fast-paced lifestyle, it's very easy to just kind of chomp, chomp down. But when you think about it, our digestive system needs to be very primed. And back in the day, our body knew to prepare for digestion when we started thinking about food and how are we going to get the food and preparing the food and smelling the food and working with the food. And it had, a long on-ramp to get ready for digestion. And so just taking the time to be mindful about our eating, to slow down, to chew our food, to enjoy our food goes a long way. And then more from the fancy medical side, there are definitely some, in-depth testing that we can do, ruling out things like SIBO and H. pylori and trying to heal kind of that leaky gut phenomenon. But oftentimes, I always reflect on this, probably a decade ago when I started diving into more functional medicine training and hormone training, we learned about all this fancy testing, right? And that is kind of the maybe knock on functional medicine that you hear is Well, anybody can find something if you do $5,000 worth of testing, something's going to show up. You have to know, how to tailor what you're looking for while also being comprehensive. But when it comes to gut testing, I did expect that I would need to do more gut testing than I do. And I just don't find that to be true. Like oftentimes, we can heal the gut without getting fancy testing through these nutritional techniques.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm so glad you said that. That reminded me of the test. Remember when I had brought to your attention about doing a test where you can check out if you've got circulating cancer cells? And I said, and I think you even said to me, is it going to worry you more? I don't remember, but I just know me. I'm doing so much already.
Yeah.
We all have circulating cancer cells. And I don't know what else I could add to be doing. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And so it's just, you got to think about your body and what do you need. And
yeah, there's part of our brain that thinks more is better, more information is better. And the rule of thumb is in medicine is don't do a test if it's not going to change, your plan. And so there's a lot of testing that technically I probably don't need, but working with patients and that shared decision making to say, okay, sometimes it is helpful to see an abnormality on paper because it gives you a little bit of motivation, right? It's like, I see that gluten sensitivity. I'm going to order the gluten-free pizza. But also, ultimate desire for people is to really get so in tune with their body and so, protective and like nurturing of their body that they intuitively know to stay away from the gluten-free pizza because they know that they feel better,
Yeah.
So.
No, I love it. So good. So good. Okay. Next up is recommendations for joint pain for someone who's taken an AI. So I went through this. I was struggling. I was on, and I want to say this too, to whoever asked this. Remember, there are 3 different AIs. There's exemestane, letrozole, and what's the last one? Aromatase, I think. I was started with exemestane, and we're all different and unique, and we all respond to this drug differently, which is just wild to me. Somebody can do great on exemestane and do awful on letrozole and vice versa. And so I was on exemestane, did horrible on it, and then I switched to letrozole and I did not have the joint pain that I had before. So I want to make sure, first of all, that there are other options to talk to your doctor about if you want to try another one. But what are your recommendations for joint pain?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge point. I think it's also important to realize that joint pain related to an AI, from everything we know, is not necessarily specific to the medication. It's not like, oh, it's a medication side effect. It's part of the mechanism of action of the medication because it's a result of estrogen deprivation. And there's probably some nuances in those AIs on how specific they are for estrogen receptors that are in the musculoskeletal system. In the ideal world, not to get too geeky on you, and we're getting more advanced in some of our techniques, but in the ideal world, right, we would have the perfect treatment that targets the estrogen receptor specific to breast cells and leaves our heart and bones and everything else alone, right?
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah. We're working on that, right? But so there's some nuances in those AIs that make them kind of have a different side effect profile related to their musculoskeletal care. And I hope that breast cancer patients are really in the hands of oncologists and other supportive clinicians that are not giving them the picture of like, this is just how it is, and we should be grateful that we're alive.
Yeah, no,
I am all about the win-win. Do not tell me there's not a win-win available.
right.
We can live and thrive. We should be using those alternative means to take care of musculoskeletal pain. So definitely starts with nutrition, whole food nutrition. There are a lot of women that especially feel achier when they're having processed foods, when they're having soda, when they're having alcohol. So whole foods nutrition. Our omega-3 fatty acids are so helpful. That's another area. Some people can get a lot of omega-3s through their diet. I think a lot of women prefer to supplement a fish oil or other source of omega-3 just because it gives a little reassurance. And certainly there have been studies, head-to-head studies even, on fish oil against some of our more popular over-the-counter anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen, and they're head-to-head. Same thing with curcumin or turmeric. That's a natural anti-inflammatory that can help quite a bit. Making sure that your vitamin D is optimal. I live in Columbus, Ohio, we are not blessed with year-round sunshine like you are not up in Michigan.
Yeah.
And so optimizing vitamin D, 50, 60 to 80 range, so if you're hanging out in the 30s and 40s, there have been studies to show that increasing that can help with pain. Staying active, of course, strength, mobility, general activity levels go a long way, especially in the morning, just having those rituals where we're stretching our way out of bed in the morning and stretching our way into bed at night to work on mobility. A lot of people, are big fans of some alternative things like infrared sauna and PEMF meds and red light therapy. Of course, we can't say that we have huge randomized placebo-controlled double-blinded studies on some of this stuff, but anecdotally we know that they're very helpful. And also we have safety data. So to me, it falls in the can't hurt, category. If
Right.
it means to do that. So those are the things that come to mind, really.
Acupuncture helped a lot too for me.
Yes.
Acupuncture,
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
that was a big one. And I went, and I know other people went too. So when you're dealing with pain, and sometimes, some places you can get insurance to cover it. I'm not sure, but I've heard that like in cancer hospitals, sometimes they have that depending on where you're going. But that was a big one for me. It
Yeah.
helped with a lot of things when I was first diagnosed. I was going weekly.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. There's body work in general, whether acupuncture, chiropractic techniques, osteopathic manipulative therapy, physical therapy. The hard thing sometimes can be is like, how do I design like a time reasonable, cost reasonable plan that supports me? But I think acupuncture on a foundation of your own strength and flexibility training is super helpful.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, one thing, and this is one of those things where it's about our hair, and sometimes we're
Mm.
like, we should be grateful to be alive, and my hair won't stop shedding, and it's thinning. Listen, I'm one of those women, and it's not fun, and I understand. So, is there something that can stop hair shedding when on hormone blocking meds? I don't even know this. Like, I have not figured out anything that really works. I have in a weft. I do have a topper. I don't have it on now, but I have a topper that I can put on every once in a while to cover up the real thinning on the part line. But yeah, I can't imagine not having some sort of, these aren't tape-ins, it's that weft that goes around you.
Yeah.
So that's what I have. Is there any other suggestion?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I do think it's a combination of things. It's like our mindset around like, hey, I deserve to do whatever I need to do to be proud of the way I look. And if that involves some help in the form of wigs, toppers, other hacks, let's embrace it. Like
Yeah,
there
heck
is
yeah.
no harm in that. And of course, certain therapies, women are going to go through phases of chemotherapy where that's our option, right? And it's a real journey to say, okay, how am I going to handle this? And so, on the one hand, it's very easy to say like, okay, it can be very empowering to shave your head and, but on the other hand, it's okay if you don't want to embrace that. And you're like, I am mourning my hair right now. Like
Yes.
this sucks,
Yes.
But especially related to AIs and just the process, we know that estrogen plays a huge role in our hair follicles. And so you can get some shedding when it comes to that hormonal balance, estrogen and testosterone for sure. And so I think a lot of our strategies really revolve around like, let's not make easy for me to say. Let's make sure nothing else is contributing. Let's optimize what we can optimize. So omega-3s, zinc, iron, or just making sure that we're not deficient in some, especially micro minerals that are involved in the hair follicle. as well as those healthy fats. There's some data related to collagen that is helpful, biotin that is helpful, some data related to biotin that's helpful. And I really try to be very kind of middle of the road when it comes to supplementation. I do not want women out there grasping for like, let me try this, let me try that, let me try that. But I do think, the majority of women without breast cancer who've had a diagnosis, we could use some foundational supplementation. So making sure all those holes are filled. And then topical minoxidil, the brand name Rogaine, or even for some people, the oral formulation can help. And the downside of it that people, sometimes, it's a bummer is that if you stop it, it will continue. But that's just kind of the nature. It is a long
So you have to be on it
you
long
have to
term.
keep using it. Yeah.
Hey, if you're enjoying this and finding value, could you do me a huge favor? We want to help other breast cancer survivors find content just like this and know that they are not alone. So 2 quick things. Number 1, please make sure you're subscribed. And number 2, I want to get to know you a little bit. So comment below with your diagnosis and where you are with everything. All right, now let's get back to the show. Since you brought up collagen, that's a controversial one in the breast cancer world. And I've heard it's totally safe to take it. And then I've heard it's not safe to take it because, and maybe you haven't even looked into this much, but I even saw, I'm not going to say the name, but somebody big on social media bring up that it can potentially, if you have active cancer, it could potentially cause that cancer to grow because, collagen is there to make things grow. Do you have any knowledge on that?
I can't say that I've seen much specific data, to be honest with you. I do think that it's kind of to me, it's another one of those scenarios where it certainly isn't like providing a growth stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, at a reasonable nutritional level, if we're not, overwhelming the body system, then, the body should be able to handle that in the correct way. So I think
Okay, got it.
the tough thing is, like, about navigating life with a diagnosis, after a diagnosis, is just the level of study, the level of scientific research. And just like we don't have a lot of studies specific to pediatric populations or pregnant women, not going to have a lot of these studies that are high quality in cancer population. So we have to depend on the level of evidence that we do have and the knowledge of our physiology to say, okay, does this sound plausible? And there are some things that you're like, no, that's even though we don't have any study, we have enough common sense knowledge to know that that's a green light.
Yeah. And I think also your belief is so powerful. I think if you are questioning something and you're having fear over it, you shouldn't do it. But if you believe in it, then there is research to show that it's safe, even though there's a study saying that maybe it's not. I mean, you can see the opposite side of everything in this world, everything.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to go with like your intuition on it. Like, what do you believe? What is your body telling you? And, what's your gut reaction to something? I think that's pretty powerful.
I think it's huge. And I'm glad you brought that up. If not for any other reason and I have this conversation with patients a lot, because if we present a treatment plan and I say, I know this is going to benefit you and, I would recommend this. The next conversation usually is sit with it, think about it, let me know your thoughts. Because if you are unable to kind of get to a point where you're like, yes, I want to do this, the last thing I want is a patient at home taking a medicine, for example, twice a day. And every time they take that medicine, they're thinking like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do this. And, and it's like, no, that's such a negative experience that creates, a negative, feeling and result in your body. So I love where kind of the woo meets science. And that's definitely a big interplay there.
Yeah, I want to, and I want to talk about stress at the end. So let's talk
Ooh.
about that. Okay, and we're not going to get to all the questions because there's just so many, and I'm kind of skimming through. This is one that quite a few people asked, and it's such a hot topic right now. So I think this is an important one to talk about. And this is microdosing GLP-1s. This is one of my favorite topics, actually, because I did a lot of research into this a year before I started taking it. And I go through Dr. Paige when I take it. She's the one that prescribes this for me at a micro dose. But anyway, I took it because I looked at the research of what it can do for us. That I have so much, not so much fear, but I had worry of the aftermath of a breast cancer. I like to call it life after the bell, after we ring that bell, which life is so very different. And the lack of estrogen that we have if we decide not to do HRT, and what that can do to our heart, our brain, our bones, all the things. And what I had learned is that there's so much emerging research about this. So what are your thoughts post breast cancer,
Yeah.
during, or anybody during perimenopause, menopause, all the things?
Yeah. So, there's no bigger hot topic, right? And
Right.
we could literally talk about this all day, I am sure, because there's such an intersect between like evidence-based medicine, where we've studied these medications in very specific populations, what I call evidence-informed medicine, which is we have a body of evidence and we know then how to extrapolate that to maybe other populations because we know safety and knowledge of physiology is there. Um, and then culture and media and fat bias. And, there's just so much around this conversation. All in all, GLP-1s, I frequently tell patients, like, what worries you about a GLP-1, quite honestly, does not keep me up at night, not one, you know, ounce, right? I am not worried about cancer risk with GLP-1s. I'm not worried about even pancreatitis in the way that I prescribe them, at least, which is starting low and moving slowly. I'm not worried about a lot of that stuff. What keeps me up at night with GLP-1s is this quick weight loss phenomenon where people are basically putting themselves in a state of malnutrition. And once the weight starts coming off, they get stars in their eyes and they just want more and more. And then at the end of the day, have we tanked our metabolism and our bone strength and our muscle strength, which is all that we should be fighting for as we age? So that's what keeps me up at night. But when it comes to microdosing, that's the beauty of microdosing. So that term, as you know, there's a lot of people that say, oh, I'm microdosing, and they're taking a full dose. They're taking a mid-range dose, So there's no real definition to the term microdosing. To me, I think the most important concept related to microdosing a GLP-1 is just the fact that we're using it more creatively, in a more personalized way that is not in the FDA approved formulation where you start at a certain dose, you're on it a month, you double it, you're on it a month, you double it. So the FDA approved brand name formulations have been studied in a very specific protocol that is really too strong for a lot of people. They don't need that. And what I've learned more than anything over the past, I don't know, probably couple of years now, more than that, that we've kind of been using a more flexible dosing schedule is some people will start with a very low dose and it will feel very strong to them. They will have a lot of effect related to appetite and weight loss and decrease inflammation. And seemingly that same person, maybe similar metabolism, similar body habitus, may need a higher dose to achieve that smaller level of improvement. So
Mhm.
I don't want people to feel like they're better than others if I only needed a little bit,
Right.
Like there's no gold medal for this. So, but where we've kind of extrapolated the use of GLP-1s are to populations that, medicine is very good at studying like the end range stuff, right? The more severe issues, more extreme obesity, more extreme diabetes. But we don't go from completely normal physiology and then 50 pounds overweight or diabetic overnight, right? There's a spectrum from, optimal to normal to subnormal to disease. And so the way I look at it is GLP-1s can really still be helpful in what you might call like mild dysfunction or optimization to decrease inflammation, decrease or at least steady insulin levels. Insulin levels tend to have a very strong storage signal. They also tend to be a growth signal. So a steady low insulin level is very beneficial for someone post-diagnosis. And so it's when you're in a situation where you feel like, man, I'm disadvantaged in this way, so I need to really put more effort into other areas to kind of keep my whole health going, that's where they can be a huge tool. And so post breast cancer is one example, obviously, but also that's kind of how I think about it when it comes to kind of perimenopause and menopause. Perimenopause is that time of hormonal chaos, right? And it is an adaptation time, just like puberty is an adaptation, pregnancy is an adaptation. Perimenopause is an adaptation time that is very stressful on the body. And so we know that hormonal fluctuations affect the adrenal glands, affect the thyroid, affect our glucose metabolism, affect our immune system and inflammation. And there are ways to optimize those things with our lifestyle, but we're never going to totally eliminate that hormonal chaos until it calms down, until menopause.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of women, when it comes to signs of that hormonal adaptation, that a GLP-1 can just really be an excellent tool in the toolbox to ride out the storm.
Yeah, no kidding. That's amazing. And so, but with that being said, okay, for somebody who has a lot of weight to lose, like let's say they do want to lose 20 plus 30, 40, 50 pounds, that is somebody then that needs to start on the starting dose with the doctor. It's not somebody who's going to, microdosing isn't going to help them to lose weight, correct? Or am I wrong in that?
Well, 2 years ago, I would have said yes, absolutely.
No.
And
Okay.
then I've seen patients that start at a half dose. And
Mhm.
so they maybe started at a half dose because their insurance didn't pay for the FDA approved version. They were a little nervous about side effects. So we started at, half dose just to kind of like dip our toe in to gain some confidence around the medicine. And lo and behold, they're losing a pound a week and they've been on the same dose for months. And it's like, oh, you didn't need all of that.
That's amazing.
Now, is that totally the action of the medicine? Or is it also a little bit of placebo effect, a little
Yeah.
bit of, hey, I see some success, and so that boosts my efforts and my psychology? I frankly do not care. I think that health is a recipe and our plan is a recipe, and our plan always consists of biochemical components and mental components. So there's some overlap there, I'm sure, but I don't care. But that being said, like if you meet the FDA approved criteria, which typically is, a BMI more than, some people use 30, some people use 33. Sometimes insurance companies want you to be at a certain BMI, but have other things going on, have sleep apnea or high blood pressure, or what have you. Like if there's a suspicion that we can get the FDA approved product, by all means, we always help our patients try to get it approved through insurance. Sometimes even if that means starting at a little bit higher dose than they could have started with the compounded version.
Yeah. It's interesting too, is I just heard something about that it can help with sleep apnea.
Yeah.
Somebody else sent me a study, or listen, it wasn't a study. It was a doctor who was talking about how it could potentially help with cancer too. Like there's so much emerging research on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wild. And I do think for me, I think about me when I first started it, I did. Even I was on, I think, a third of the starting doses where we started, me. And I did feel like, whoa, I'm not sure if I can do this, because I really didn't have, I mean, maybe like, around the middle, just after menopause, like maybe just a little bit of weight, a few pounds, 5 pounds maybe. And I thought, because I didn't want to not eat. I wanted to still be able to lift every day and have the energy. And I did not want to lose muscle, and I didn't want to have an enormous weight loss and all these things. But I was worried, and that went away. I got used to it within the first few days. I've loved it. And I feel like it's helped so much with my brain fog and just feeling better and in a better mood. And so I think there is something to our mindset too, the cravings go away. There's no like food noise. And I think, when we're stressed, we're in menopause, we got so much stuff going on, we're in chaotic lives, and that can help with that food noise. It can help then with that confidence. And then you actually want to eat healthier, and then you are more mindful and you do eat slower. It's like this, I don't know.
Snowball. I tell
Snowball.
people we start snowballing in the right direction. Because how
Yes.
many times have we been in a situation where we're like, oh, we're snowballing in the wrong direction here. So
Right.
our goal is to start snowballing in the right direction.
Yes.
And, you hear people talk about GLP-1s, and I get it. Like, our human brains, we want to see things as black and white. We want to see things as easy. Like, oh, that just, makes you feel fuller faster, or it just does this, it just does this. The mechanisms of action and how they play off of each other are so numerous. Like you mentioned, there's a gut-brain connection that really decreases the food noise and cravings. It does slow the digestive tract a bit, so that makes you feel fuller faster. It does have metabolic influences in stabilizing glucose and insulin levels, which feeds into decreasing inflammation. It's so multifactorial, which I think is why we're seeing so many studies. One, we're seeing effects of maybe science waking up to the fact that obesity is a root cause for so many other things. At one time, it was like, oh, you're carrying around a little extra body weight. No, we're often carrying around metabolically active, inflammatory signaling organs. That's what certain types of fat are. And so we're waking up to the metabolic effects of fat, and also just these downstream effects of decreased inflammation when it comes to studies seem like they come out every day, right? But related to heart disease, related to kidney disease, related to cognitive function and Alzheimer's decreasing risk, related to obviously decreased risk of diabetes, decreased risk of developing autoimmunity as you age, decreased inflammation and pain from arthritic conditions. So
It's insane.
yeah,
It's insane. It's wild.
obviously not to paint it as like the cure-all, right? It absolutely, just like everything else, needs to be a tool in the toolbox. It needs to be, in my, biased opinion, needs to be prescribed by a clinician who's well-informed, who wants to partner with you on your whole health, who's not working for an online GLP-1 vending machine. So that's my, thing. But I think, one population of people, one group of people that I think are expressing more and more interest as these studies come out are more senior ladies, are elderly. When you start really thinking about cognitive decline and decreased risk of Alzheimer's. And so I think it's exciting that they're thinking about prevention, not to over, stereotype, but there's a large group of ladies that I see that are just a little more passive about their health as they age. And maybe they've accepted what happens with aging as normal, where it's just really common in our culture. And so they think it's normal for them to slow down a little bit, and for them to get weaker, and for them to not remember things. And it's like, hey, this is a tool that's kind of perking them up to the conversation related to, strong over skinny and nutrition over calories.
Yep.
I will say that group is, again, not a stereotype, but that group is a little challenging because, I'm 49. I feel like our age group grew up with a lot of diet culture, but my mom's generation was all about the, the Slim Fast and the Deal Meal cards and like all the diets,
Oh my gosh, I remember that being in my house. That's horrific.
Yeah.
Gosh, looking
So
at
I
those
just feel like
ingredients.
they deserve such extra attention to say, like, no, we need to be building muscle. You can build muscle at any age. We need to be, getting our protein and getting our fiber and protecting our mobility at all costs.
Yeah. Well, this was amazing. We're already past, and I know you have to
Yes.
go. But let's end it with you just quickly talking about, because I talk with so many women and stress. I remember one of our first conversations, you would talk to me about stress and the importance of not worrying so much,
Yeah,
because that's what we do.
it is what we do. And it's a constant battle. Like, I'm in it right there with you these days. At different times in life, it's going to be easier than others. But I think just a couple of thoughts. One, I think that even when we don't feel like we're stressed, we have accepted this level of like slow burn of our sympathetic nervous system that might manifest itself as a doer, a go, 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 a constantly thinking, oh, I just have a lot of ideas. And
Are
I
you
want to
talking
do
about
this
me?
self. So we just want to be go, go, go. And it's hard to calm down. We have a podcast in our ear at all times, like we develop these habits. And then, and those habits, we really have to recognize that we have been praised for all of this. Like, we are the girls that get the job done. We are all,
Are the
we're
best
creative.
multitaskers.
Yes.
Such good at
Yeah.
so
I
good.
can hold everything. Another big factor for women is just this, kind of our very innate mama bear hypervigilant nature. Like, we will have our eyes on everything, right? We have a kid over here, we have the pot of water boiling over here. We learn to be hypervigilant, and we very easily can ingrain that, and then superimpose that on our culture, which is very much, did you get my message? The text and the emails and the pings and the lights and the and so we have to really realize that, like, stress relief isn't something, or tending to our nervous system is probably, like a better way to frame it, is not just something that is to be done when the what hits the fan. It's not when something huge is happening. It really is a daily discipline that has to be infused in your being.
Yes, that's too.
Also, talk to a lot of women who are like, it's very easy to put our like type A nature even to the good work,
Yep.
and they come in and they tell me, like, I'm doing all the things. I'm eating the whole foods, and I'm meditating twice a day, and I go to yoga 3 times a week, and I just don't know why it's not working. And I'm like, well, how do we put this? It's like, so when we are doing even the good things and checking them off the box and moving on, it's not really infusing that like essence into our day. The other thing I have to say is, let's not also ignore, I think our default when we talk about stress and such is that, oh, we all just need to calm down, which there's an element of this. Let's be honest. Like, we sometimes need to take it up a notch. But also, we can go through times in life, especially where we're wired and tired. We're like too calm, in that we're not doing enough of the things that are really fulfilling, So sometimes you need that combination between like the zen and the zest, So, don't just take away from this conversation that, like, oh, they just say I just need to calm down and meditate all day and whatever. It's like, no, we want you out there having fun too. In fact, we probably would do better with health to use joy and enjoying life as the through line for all of our health decisions. Knowing that, like, truly enjoying life. I think the fear is that, like, if we tell people to like have more fun, they're just going to like go crazy and do all the unhealthy stuff. It's like, no, a nurturing sense of joy is not doing all the unhealthy things. It's connecting with your friends. It's connecting with your family. It's developing sense of purpose and hobbies and rest, but also balancing that with excitement too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is so good. This is like a perfect place to end it. I just love that. I think like that's like, yes, we need to have all the things to bring in more peace. And I do believe that's unplugging more and not multitasking and staying present whenever you can and doing one thing at a time, and but also being with people. And I just started actually meeting my girlfriend once a week. We go to a Pilates reformer class and it's so fun. And it's not about just that class. It's about her and I meeting together there talking, and then the just talking afterwards, and it's just that connection with people, which I think so many of us are lacking. So how can people, we'll end it with like, where can people work with you? I'll of course have all of her info in the show notes.
Yes. So I own a practice called Signature Primary Care and Wellness, which I have to share this with you all. I haven't even released it yet, but we're actually rebranding our practice. The new name of the practice is Gosa Wellness.
Ooh.
Gosa in Spanish means enjoy. And so this literally is the through line of my life's work, is enjoying wellness. You certainly need your health to enjoy your life, but perhaps even more than that, you need to enjoy your life in order to achieve health. And so that's our fun project that we're working on in our practice. But you can go to drpaige.com. It's drpaige.com. That will always live and point you in the direction that you want to go. We partner with patients in a couple of different ways. We do a lot of virtual work, almost nationwide. There's some caveats to the state things and working in different states. But we partner with patients either through a one-time consult for a 3-month period. Really, what I love is our membership program, because your mental health, biochemical health, structural health, hormone health, it is not stopping anytime soon. And so we have programs that help people dive into all aspects of health with coaching and, all the traditional medical stuff, but also supporting mental health and nutrition and fitness. And I love doing that in a membership program, honestly, because it just takes the stress out of it. Once you kind of pay a monthly fee, it's like you call me, text me. I'm there for you when you
It's
need
kind
me.
of like a concierge service.
It is.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I kind of, quite honestly, I don't relate to that term as much, only because it maybe can sound, or at least to me, maybe it sounds like, oh, it's expensive or elitist.
Oh, yeah.
There's
No, it's not expensive at all.
No. So, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is like, we want to be able to use our insurance on the one hand, but insurance really drives up the cost more than it needs to be. So some of your private pay clinicians, physical therapists, physicians, counselors, that's going to be the more affordable route. Ironically, it's crazy.
It is crazy. Okay, well, good. Thank you so much for being here.
We'll
have to have you back again to answer the rest of these questions one of these days, because there's still a lot more.
Yeah,
we will get to it.
Let's do it.
Okay, everything will be in the show notes below. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found value in this conversation and some encouragement as you navigate your journey. If you want to keep learning and connecting, make sure you are subscribed to the show, and then check out below where I have some other links where you can stay connected in other areas, possibly join my cancer community. And again, don't forget to subscribe, and then you will never miss an episode. I am Jen Delvaux, your breast cancer bestie, and I'll see you in the next one.